The Dental Download podcast is your source for insight into dental school, conversations with dentists, specialists, and leaders in the industry. With new episodes every Monday morning, I'm your host, Haley Schultz. Let's get into this week's episode. Want to make a podcast? Spotify's got a platform that lets you make one super easily and then distribute it everywhere and even earn money, all in one place for free. It's called Spotify for Podcasters. Here's how it works. Spotify for Podcasters lets you record and edit podcasts right away from your phone or computer, so no matter what your setup is like, you can start creating today. Then you can distribute your podcast to Spotify, but also everywhere else podcasts are heard. Video podcasts are also available, and you can earn money in a variety of ways, including ads and podcast subscriptions. Did I mention it is totally free, no catch? I've been using Spotify for Podcasters since the very beginning of my show, and now we're nearing our 200th episode, so I can definitely say it's an easy platform, and I've really loved using it. So be sure to download the Spotify for Podcasters app or go to www.spotify.com/podcasters to get started. Okay, hi everyone. We have another guest here today, and I'm super excited to introduce Dr. Amanda Wilson. Hi. Could you just tell us a little bit about your background and how you got to where you are now?
Yes, thanks so much for having me on, Haley. It's been a pleasure to get to know you, and I'm really glad to get to know your listeners. So sure, my name is Amanda. I'm an orthodontist. I feel like I'm still in dental school. I had to think and do the math, and I realized I've been out, believe it or not, for 22 years. So that's insane. It goes by in a blink, so please enjoy every moment of it. I went to UCSF. Well, I'm originally from, we'll go back to the beginning. I'm originally from the Bay Area, California. Went to UCSF Dental School, which is kind of our hometown school in San Francisco. Met my husband there. He was my anatomy lab partner, and I'm sure there's plenty of you who will end up marrying your classmates, believe it or not. We never thought that was going to happen, but it did. And we both had last names of W, so it was pretty cool. We got to sit next to each other all those years, drove each other crazy, and we're still driving each other crazy. So shout out to UCSF. And then I went on to be an orthodontist at University of Connecticut, did my 3-year training there, master's and certificate. Shortly thereafter, my husband and I got married. We ended up moving back to California for a little while, and then we moved to Hawaii, and that's where we are right now.
Awesome. So are you currently practicing orthodontics in Hawaii, or what we'll get into later is your business that you're running as well?
Yeah. So this is what I'm going to try to get at. And I want you guys to realize that you have an orthodontist who loves to get to know people, is happy to talk to you, even if you don't even have a clinical question. So I'm going to be super honest about things that happened in my life, in my education, because that's kind of who I am. And it's part of, what I'm out there to offer you guys, because I think we didn't get a lot of advice in residency or in dental school. And both of us, my husband and I, and a lot of my friends, we made a lot of mistakes. And that's okay to make mistakes. But I think the best part about making a mistake is to be candid, with other people so that they don't make the same mistakes. So I think that one thing, and this might end up being a really long podcast, but I think it'll end up resonating with a lot of your listeners. So as you're picking a specialty, or you deciding you want to stay in general, you need to think about how you want your life to be in 10, 20, 30 years. And that's a really great discussion to have with your partner. One of the things that was really cool about, my husband, then, classmate, is he was always very supportive of me working. He was always very supportive of co-parenting, and not talking about being divorced, but, in terms of both of us helping out with kids. It seemed like our family values aligned. I really had no concerns. He was very supportive of me going to go into residency at ortho, and for him to start his practice in Hawaii. What we really didn't discuss was, or we really hadn't thought about it, was what it was going to be like to have a family and have 2 people in clinical dentistry. And once that actually happened, it just never worked out for us. Not in terms of us being together, and this sounds awkward, but just in terms of just the flow of things. And sometimes, maybe if you have family members who can watch the kids and they're happy about it, then maybe it does work out. But for us, it didn't. It was always and I think you have less of this issue in dental school that you do when you get out, when you have crazy amount of student loans and, you have to pay your bills and you have to, it's student loans are hard. They're really, really hard, especially when you have two sets of them. It's stressful. So whenever one kid was sick and we had, two kids under age 3 at one point, it was like, okay, who has the lowest production on their books? Who's closing their schedule today? And when you close a schedule, you still have to pay for staff and everything like that. And kids get sick a lot and you can't send them to daycare or preschool when they're sick, and nobody wants to watch them. So it ended up like, it seemed like one of us was always having to take the day off. It just wasn't working. So anyways, long story short, to answer your question, I ended up, after 10 years in practice full-time, I ended up stepping back and deciding I wanted to do something non-clinical for a few years was my idea. But I never quite went back. I ended up loving doing non-clinical. So that is my story. So no, I do not practice in Hawaii. I have my own business and I'll describe that more later and how it'll benefit your listeners.
Awesome. That's interesting to hear more of your background. And you kind of hinted at the fact that you knew in dental school and going into everything that you wanted to do orthodontics. Is that something you knew growing up or when you started undergrad or when you started dental school? When did that realization come to you?
Yeah, for sure. I had braces. I mean, you got to realize back in the 80s and stuff, or early 90s, there really was no Invisalign. Invisalign didn't come out till 97, 98. So it didn't exist. So everyone had braces, of course. And back then, when I was even considering what I was going to do, almost no general dentists were doing ortho. Like it was unheard of. Everyone referred out. It was just so difficult because of the braces and the wire bending and everything like that. So it was the most lucrative specialty. It was the most elite specialty. So I came into dental school saying, I'm going to be an orthodontist. That's all I'm going to do. And I'm going to do it. And people would laugh at me. They were like, oh, you can't be that confident. I'm like, sure I can. So yeah, I mean, I hated everything about general dentistry. I hated endo. I hated perio. I did it, but enough to pass. But I was like, it's either ortho or bust for me.
And kind of on that topic, I definitely feel like I have classmates in that same situation, but they're very stressed because orthodontics is still a competitive residency to get into.
It is.
Do you have any advice for those students?
Well, I think you guys have more options now. And this is why I really wanted to I'm so glad you had me on your podcast because, back when I was doing it, I had no choice. It was either ortho or bust because GPs didn't do ortho. It was unheard of. You just would never get the skills. But now, I mean, ortho's become so much easier. It's so easy. I mean, there's hard cases, don't get me wrong, but the beauty of what you guys can do as a GP or a super GP doing ortho or any type of specialty is that you can refer the hard ones out and you can keep the ones you want in and the ones where you like the patients in. When you are a specialist, you got to take them all, even if you're going to lose money on it, even if you don't like the patient, even if it's like a miserable case that you don't want to do, So, I mean, why? I mean, I guess if that's the only thing you like and that's the only thing you could see yourself doing, I know so many GPs that only do ortho now, and I work with them all the time. I see them, I meet them at conferences, and they're taking a lot of advanced classes, and they're just, but the cool thing is that about GPs is that you're basically feeding the practice. Ortho has changed so much in the last decade, like I alluded to. When I first graduated, there really was no Invisalign, or it just launched. It was a terrible product. It was like less than 1% of cases. No one was really doing it. It was a joke. We laughed at it. As a matter of fact, when I went to residency, my residency director told us if we even took the certification class, he'd kick us out of residency. That's how bad it was. It was bad. Totally different product now. Everything can get better or can get worse, right? So basically, we always had referrals. It was not a problem. They would just come in by the bucket loads, I mean, every GP was going to see, just make friends and send them gift baskets and take them out to eat, and you got referrals. There wasn't such thing as marketing. Maybe it's in a mailer, but it's changed drastically in the last 20 years. Now, you go on Instagram, and I'm friends with lots of dentists and student dentists on Instagram, and every dentist is doing ortho. If not Invisalign, they're doing braces, they're doing phase one, they're doing clear correct, everyone's doing it. It just helps them. The patients are there. And a lot of times they don't want to refer out to a office, especially adults, but even the teenagers. It's just more convenient, to stay in-house if you know what you're doing. In fact, they often fight you when you want to refer them out. So now orthodontists have to crazy market. A huge percentage of their budget is going towards marketing. And the funny thing is that the price, I mean, I'll be super candid with you. when I graduated from residency in 2004, my first job paid me, and now I think this is just a ridiculous price. It's so high. It would never happen now, but I got paid base $1,800 a day, base plus $200 per start. Plus they covered all my expenses, no lab fees, anything like that. So every day I was coming home with someone's up to $3,000 a day. It was insane how much money you could make in ortho, especially if you weren't like in a major city. If you're willing to travel or go outside the major cities and stuff, it was some major cash, and that kind of disappeared as it became more saturated and more GPs started doing ortho. It definitely went down significantly. So it was very profitable back then.
That's interesting. And even at my school, we have an elective that I'm in right now for all of us dental students that are interested, where we can go through more ortho training and do an Invisalign case in fourth year. So I feel like it's taught by our orthodontics residency directors, faculty, those
That's good
dentists, and they're obviously encouraging us learning it, because it's interesting. You would think that the orthodontic specialists would kind of be pushing back and not wanting GPs doing as much, because like you're saying, it's making perhaps their client.
Oh, there's plenty that don't want you to do it, but there's a few of us that are like, you know what? I mean, people may have heard this on other podcasts I've said, but I think it was maybe 2008. It was during the first recession, not this one that we're in now or getting out of, but the housing crisis of 2008, 2009. And no one had money. It was rough. I think it was worse than what we've gone through now. And some dude put like a billboard right near my office that said Invisalign $29.95, and I was charging $7,500 to $8,000. And I didn't get any more patients. It was insane. My braces patients were going over there. I started like losing hemorrhaging patients. I before, no one ever shopped around, and then everyone started shopping around. So I said, you know what, I gotta go talk to this guy, and see what's up. I was like, oh, maybe he does bad work, or maybe they're all gonna come back to me, but his work was okay, and that's primarily what he did. He told me, look, I'm not looking to make a profit off my Invisalign, which to me was like, what? He's like, I'm trying to do my Invisalign so I can do better cosmetic work, better implants. That's where I'm making the profit. And that blew me away. So once I heard that, I was like, okay, got it. That's fair. I talked to my husband, who was a GP, and I said, we got to do things differently. This is not going to work. It's never going to be profitable. So he said, great. I'll start, teach me. I want to start doing it, So we started teaching him and coming up with programs to do that. And then from there, it turned into teaching his friends, and then turned into a company.
Yeah. At what point did you form your formal company and start putting everything together for people?
It launched officially. I mean, I didn't really have a name or a brand. I was just helping people, but an actual system, I started put together in 2016. So I'm going on my 7th year now, full-time doing this. Before I was just consulting with different orthodontic companies, labs, things like that, for a couple of years before that. But I think I told you that the goal was to give me more flexibility so that I could raise my own kids and not have 2 full-time nannies, which cut back on a lot of overhead, which was great because we live in Hawaii. The nice thing is that it's like when the East Coast starts to work, and the Central starts to work, it's still like 3 a.m., 4 a.m. our time. So I'd get up at 2, 3, 4 a.m., which isn't nuts when you have kids because they go to bed at 7. And I'd work till about noon. My husband would drop them off at school or preschool, and I'd pick them up after lunch, and I'd have the whole afternoon. We go to the beach, we go to the pool, and I'd raise my own kids, and it worked out.
And how old are your kids now?
Oh, they're old now. One's driving. Teenagers.
That's exciting.
Well, it gets more interesting. I mean, just in case, it's always good to get to know people on podcasts. But yeah, my son is, he's a swimmer now. He's trying to make the 2024 Olympics, at least Olympic trials. He probably won't make it that young for Team USA, maybe 28. But he's going through Division I recruiting for swimming. And this would have never happened. We're traveling all the time. This would never happen had I had a full-time practice. So he thanks me all the time. He says, thank you so much, for what you did for our family, so I'm not trying to make anyone feel guilty, but for us, it was the right decision.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's something I'm going to be exploring in the next couple months. I'm in my 3rd year, so hopefully starting 4th year, I'd like to kind of know what I'm doing for work to then figure out long-term goals. Cause as you said, I don't think clinical full-time forever makes sense for most people unless that's what you love and that works. But for most people,
and
good to have other
the thing about
avenues.
ortho, is that you're booked out like 6 months. It's not the same with GP. So I don't want to freak people out. a regular full ortho office, if you have a patient, they're not ready to start, you book the recall 6 months out or 12 months out, retainer visit 6 months out. So your schedule's always booked. There's zero room for flexibility, so if you go and change the days, and on an average ortho office is going to have 10 staff, 15 staff, you're having, 6 to 8 chairs. That's just back office, and then you've got front office, and it's a lot of staff. So if you go change things, it causes a big drama. So you really have zero flexibility. So it's just something to think about when you're picking specialties. It's different maybe for endo or OS or other things.
And for new grads, you were kind of hinting at different ways that people can get experience with clear aligners, but what do you think is the best place for new grads to start if they want to get into implementing that?
Sure. I mean, a lot of it's going to depend if you have your own office or you're associating, you're with a DSO. I think most bigger group practices have procedures and processes for these, but my suggestion is that you learn it on your own. And that's part of the reason why I put all my educational materials for aligners available for free. They're all on YouTube, and I have over 250 to 300 how-to videos, and I just kind of record them as requests come in. People say, hey, make a video about this, and I make it. So almost every day I'm adding a new video. It's not always about aligners. It could be about braces, phase one, other types of retention, growth, so many ortho components that are out there. But I mean, I have, I think, over 9,000 videos total. It's ridiculous. I started it really aggressively during COVID because obviously everyone was dialing down on their cases. So, things got slow for me. So I was like, okay, let's just start making content, So it's been really, really fun. And it's so cool to get to meet, have people engaging and in the questions and the comments and stuff, and then meeting them in person. So yeah, it's all free. So go on and learn it. I honestly think that my free stuff is the best education that's out there, better than any paid class. That's just my opinion. But, just because the experience is there, and I try to explain things as simply as possible.
And for people wondering, is that under your doctor title or is it StraightSmileSolutions?
StraightSmileSolutions. Yeah, definitely not. Yeah.
Perfect.
You can just look up StraightSmileSolutions YouTube, and you'll see there's I don't know, I have 19,000 followers right now, but it's definitely getting bigger and bigger by the day.
That's so exciting. I have a few more questions, and I kind of just want to get some more broad advice from you too. So obviously with Invisalign, you have to have an iTero, and then there's all these competitors of products and everything out there. If someone's wanting to get started, in your opinion, what tech should they purchase? Maybe what brand should they work with? Or do you think it really doesn't matter?
Well, I mean, I think initially you want to work with whatever. I'm assuming most offices have a scanner at this point. Very few offices don't have some type of scanner. So work with what equipment you have just to get your feet wet. Don't go out and just buy something just to buy something, because you might decide you don't like it. But most doctors that I work with, they do eventually end up getting that iTero. And I do not agree with their policy on what they're doing. It's really uncool that you have to use, I mean, in other countries, it's not that restrictive, but it's only in the US that it's that restrictive. So, but the iTero is just, oh my goodness, it's so much easier. It's the outcome simulator is amazing to sell it. I mean, I've never had an office. Okay, of course, my instructions when you get the iTero, assuming you get one, is to scan every single patient in your office, new, recall, whatever. Just have it be a part of your new patient or recall patient visit at least once a year. It's from age 6 on up for sure. Doesn't mean we're going to start them. We're just going to scan their bite, educate the patient about what we see. And initially I recommend, work with an orthodontist. It doesn't have to be me. It can be any orthodontist or someone that knows orthodontics really well, outside office hours, just to get your scripting going. What do we see? What are the problems that we see? Let's talk about this. We see crowding, we see abfractions, we see attrition. And this can even be something a hygienist can do. Our goal is to have you keep your teeth for a lifetime. We think it's going to be a lot cheaper to fix your bite, and then to have to get a bunch of crowns or an all-in-4 later because, teeth are tipping and bending over and things like that. So it's a small, tiny investment now that insurance may or may not cover part of, to keep your teeth for a lifetime later.
And for StraightSmileSolutions, you have your YouTube page where you post all those videos. What other options do you offer for students or new grads?
Sure. I mean, that's definitely all free. And, but also definitely, let's see, we have a lot of blogs that are on my website, which is StraightSmileSolutions.com. That's all free. And like I said, students can definitely reach out, ask questions. I have zero problems with that, or even new grads. You can say, I have this case, I'm kind of stuck on it. Sometimes I can even do freebies to help you guys out with a case, depending on the complexity of it. If we get stuck, I'll say, hey, let's just meet and look over your case, especially for new grads. If it's in the first 30 to 60 days of you graduating, I often do things for free. I hate to make like a giant statement because I might end up with 1,000 people asking for help on cases, but I'm sure you're very popular. But definitely glad to help out. Definitely glad to be there for you. To give advice. Just want to be that orthodontist that you feel comfortable reaching out to.
And I didn't mention it at the beginning, but we are doing a giveaway.
We are. Yeah, I didn't want to bring that up until you were ready.
Yeah,
so we're doing a giveaway
of a couple of her books. Yes. So
yes,
that will
I
be
did write a book.
Yeah,
yeah,
go
it's
ahead.
called the Easy Guide to Implementing. I might be saying it quite different than the title, but Easy Guide to Implementing Orthodontics in Your Dental Practice or something like that. And it's available on Amazon, both bound book as well as Kindle. And so I'm going to be giving away a handful of physical books to however you want to make your contest on your Instagram. Just give me their addresses later and I will send it to them. It'll come through Amazon. So once you win, it usually takes about 2 weeks for them to ship it. But you'll get a book in the mail, and it has a lot of tricks and tips in there that you maybe wouldn't see elsewhere. And it's a really easy read.
Yeah, thank you for doing that. I'm excited. Sure. I have the copy from you too, so I'm gonna look through that as well.
Awesome. And if y'all like it, please give me 5 stars on Amazon. Thank you.
Yes. I know how much reviews can make a difference.
Yes.
So. I also just wanted to kind of get some more reflections from you on your career so far. You shared a lot of your highs and lows. Is there anything else that sticks out looking back that really just surprised you, like where life or dentistry just went different than you thought was going to happen?
Everything went different than we always laugh about it now. It was never what anyone expected. So I think just roll with it. And remember, like this whole traditional 9 to 5, 4 to 5 days a week, having your own practice does not have to be the way you want to do it. There are a zillion different ways to practice. And I'd be so glad to talk to anyone if you're feeling burnt out, if you want to think about alternatives. I think I've explored them all. So, from research to teaching to product development with different labs and companies. And one of the best thing to do, if I'm assuming a lot of you guys are doing it, is to start your LinkedIn page. That's really how everything got started for me. I started in 2014 when LinkedIn pretty much launched. And I have about 30,000 followers now on LinkedIn. So I'm always posting, but I've met so many amazing dentists and people just in the industry, through LinkedIn, and we have great chats and then we end up collaborating, and it's also a great way to, sometimes like companies will hire you to check their product or research their product or try their product. Maybe you'll just get a lot of free stuff, or maybe you'll be compensated for doing research on it. But that's a nice little side hustle that you can do to make some extra money. Oh, and one more thing. I don't know if your students have ever heard of an expert network. I definitely had never heard of this before. You know what an expert network is?
Is that just like kind of a small group of people that share ideas and like coach each other, basically? Something like that?
So what it is, in theory, yes. But so what it is there's a bunch of different, almost like they're like, what do you call it? I didn't even know this existed, but a lot of them are based in New York or San Francisco or Houston, big company, big expert people, almost like headhunters. But what they'll do is they'll get either investors. It's usually investors or companies where they're looking to invest in a certain space, or they're interested in startups and they don't know anything about a topic. So certainly dentistry is not something that these like financial people know a lot about. So they will hire dentists to explain things simply for them. Like I'll get a lot like, tell me about Invisalign. How do you use it in your practice? How do you make money? Or what do you see it doing? And what are the highs and lows? Or tell me about, direct to consumer aligner company or something. And they're looking for trends. So maybe they're looking to invest in Align, Smile Direct Club. I don't know what they're looking to invest in, but they'll just pick your brain about what you think and how you use it in your practice. And from there, they decide whether or not they're going to invest in something. Obviously, it's not insider trading, but they pay a lot, like a lot. Like I was really surprised when I first did it. I was getting $400 an hour. And then I realized that I had friends that are getting $700, $800, $900 an hour. And of course, it's prorated. So it's up to an hour. But if it goes a full hour, you get that $900. Otherwise, it's prorated on that, but you set your own rate. Obviously, the higher your rate is, the less likely you're going to get booked. So I've boosted mine up now that I'm so busy. I'm like, oh, I don't want to do too many of these. I'll make my rate crazy high, So I don't have as many, but that's a nice way to make some money right out of school, just cash. I mean, obviously it's 1099, so you're gonna have to pay taxes on it, but who would have known, right? And I got all those from LinkedIn.
Interesting. So people just message you on LinkedIn trying to set up an opportunity.
Yeah, I mean, these people, I mean, I'll give you some of the names of some of the companies, in case you guys want to research them, but there's a big one called GLG, Garrison Lehman Group or something like that. There's one called GuidePoint, Ridgetop, Alpha Sites. Oh goodness, there's so many. I'm probably a member of like 10 of them now. But I pretty much get a message almost every day asking me something about dentistry. And it's not always ortho. It could be implants, or it could be certain tool used for general dentistry, or a vacuum pump, or I mean, everything. But you can get really involved in that. And it's a nice way to supplement your income. And you pick the date and time, and then they just call you and you just chat and then automatically get a check.
Yeah, that's really interesting. And I've also heard of some general dentists doing like consulting for, that's kind of what you're doing, just
yeah, this one's just over the phone, but I've done consulting with labs, with companies before. A lot of, just open yourself up to other revenue streams and passive income.
And when you mentioned you explored like teaching and everything, did you actually teach at a university, or was it more like CE, or it was just something you looked
I've done a lot of CEs. Yeah, I teach CEs all the time, right and left, both destination, webinar based, everything like that. Some paid, some volunteer. But at one point they were thinking about starting a dental school in Hawaii when we moved back, and it all got proposed, and then I guess it fell apart. But I was supposed to be the ortho director. So definitely had explored that. I probably would have done it had it happened. But now I'm lecturing, starting to do lecturing for UCSF remotely for CEs. So I'm pretty honored to be able to give back to that community.
That would be exciting if Hawaii ever gets a dental school. I feel like every state should have one.
I think every state should too. Yeah, because we have a lot of people here. So, I mean, it would be really great if we had one.
Yeah, it just seems skewed, or some states have only a private dental school, and it just doesn't make sense to me. I feel very fortunate to go to a in-state publicly funded dental school. Definitely helps with the cost of tuition and everything. So before we wrap up, you've shared so much great advice, and I really have loved getting to hear about your story. Do you have any just like final words of wisdom you want to leave the listeners with?
Sure. I mean, I wish someone had told me this a little bit more, but if you do go to residency, just keep in mind some residency programs are master's based, where you have to do research, and some are just clinical. And usually the master's based ones either pay, or you don't have to pay for the school part, and you just have to pay for your room and board. And the clinical ones often you have to pay. It depends on so I mean, it varies widely. At least for ortho, it's all over the place. There's some where you're going to pay $70,000 a year, and there's some where you're going to get paid. So, and there's some you're going to have to do a master's program, and there's some that you're not. I hated the master's part of my program. It was about half of my 3-year program. If in hindsight, I would have totally never done that if I had my choice. I did a lot of research in college, and I took a year off and did research, and I knew how to do it in a lab. I just never liked it. So it was like, I love ortho. I hate the research part. So yeah, I mean, if you can avoid it, and if you're not into that, try to pick ones that don't have it, but try not to borrow money either, or too much for your residency. Otherwise you're going to be like me, getting kind of old and still paying off your student loans. And then you got a son in college and you got to pay for that. So that's no fun.
That is great insight, and something I think, especially people early in their maybe pre-dental or just starting dental school, they don't really know the ins and outs of residency yet. They just know I probably want to go to residency. So it's good to get information early.
Yeah. And you're going to lose 1 whole year of salary on top of that, So, I mean, you're really getting a late start on things.
And thank you so much for your time again tonight. Is there a good way for people to reach out to you if they have questions?
Sure. I mean, honestly, the best way to reach out to me is to go to my website, StraightSmileSolutions.com. It's pretty easy to find. And from there, there's all kind of places to leave messages, chats, everything like that. But you can also find me. That's the fastest way. My email is info@StraightSmileSolutions.com. But if you go to my website, it's easy to contact me via email. You can also reach out on any of my socials. I'm on TikTok, but I really don't like it on my phone. So I installed a bunch of stuff and then I got off of it because I don't trust it. So I know you guys are probably all on it. My daughter's on it, so she checks out my stuff, but I don't really answer anything on TikTok. But I do answer Instagram, Facebook, and LinkedIn within 24 hours. So yeah, just reach out to me. No problem.
Thank you so much again. I really appreciate your time tonight.
Thank you so much for having me. And I look forward to getting to know your listeners, and good luck on that contest.
Thank you.
Take care.